Okay, getting started in Flash. So the first thing I just want to talk about is just the initial setup of your workspace. So I don't know, like when you open Flash, it's probably not going to look clean like this. But I've been using Flash since like Flash MX or something back in like the early 2000s. So I'm used to my Flash looking like this with the timeline up top and like none of the windows hovering, and like I like a nice clean design so I can just draw, because I kind of just like it being almost like a sheet of paper. And one thing I keep open, I have my properties thing open right here. I got two monitors, so I just keep this on the other side, but like if I didn't have two monitors, I would just have this hover right here, and I'd probably shrink it and close some of these windows and stuff. But I think it's important to take some time to initially just like set up how you want this to look and get really detailed and really specific with it. Because here's the thing, if you're serious about doing animation, you're going to be like looking at this a lot. And one of the things I hate is when I close, Flash and reopen it, and there's a million windows and the timeline's down here at the bottom, and I just like this nice, clean, efficient look. So, go ahead and set everything up the way you think you would like it, and then go here to Window, Workspaces, and just save your workspace. Your own customized space is how you're going to know quickly where everything is and how to get to everything. You don't want to have to jumble around and try to search for windows and menus, or have to sift through them while you're just trying to draw. So that's my whole thing. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the tools. I feel like you could just go through here and go down the line and sort of mess with everything and figure it out. Flash is pretty intuitive about, telling you what's what and what does what. One thing I will suggest is that you memorize, like, if you mouse hover over any tool, it'll show you the keyboard shortcut right here. I think it's in your best interest to memorize the keyboard shortcuts for the tools you're going to be using the most. So, I have a keyboard on my lap right now, as you can see. And, if I need to switch tools on the fly, I'm just hitting keyboard shortcuts. If I need to make my brush smaller, bigger, if I need to pan, all this stuff is mapped to my keyboard. And, keyboard shortcuts are what make you fast. The thing is, you want to be able to move quickly through these scenes. You want the thing that's going to take the longest amount of time to be the actual drawing and not fumbling around with the program. So like having to come all the way over here and find the tool and then select it and then use the tool and then come all the way back and find the brush and then select it. That little chunk of time adds up over like scenes, you know what I mean? And you just got to reduce the amount of time it takes you to do things in incremental stages. So that's a major one. So next, what I want to talk about are symbols and motion tweens. These are really the two most powerful and effective things Flash has to offer. And I think a lot of people will think of symbols and motion tweens and immediately think of stiff, rigid puppet animation. But really, these are like limited animation tools for you to do your animation in compartmentalized chunks, instead of having everything just in this big, long list of layers on your one timeline. So, for a motion tween, as a rule of thumb, for 2D animation, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but you right-click on the timeline. Whenever you do a tween, you always want to create a classic tween. Don't use motion tween. Shape tween we're not really messing with at the moment. Classic tween is what you want. So in order to motion tween something, it has to be a symbol. You have to convert it to a symbol. So what is a symbol? I think the hardest thing to grasp about using Flash is just wrapping your head around what symbols are and what to do with them. So let's pretend that puppet animation doesn't exist. We're not making Flash puppets yet. Let's just say we're doing straight up traditional hand-drawn animation. What you can use symbols for, let's imagine that, let's say you're animating a car, right? Or even better, let's say you're doing a wagon, and your wheel on the wagon has spokes, and you want to see the spokes rotate, right? But then you also want the wagon to rock. So these are two different things that you can set up in two different symbols. So you would have a symbol that's the wagon base rocking, and then a symbol that's just the wheel rotating. And the advantage of doing that is that each of these parts is going to have their own self-contained timeline that doesn't affect the main timeline. And this is what makes it confusing. So I think the hardest thing to grasp is that, you know, you got your main timeline, which is scene 1. So just to illustrate what I'm saying, let's say I'll make the shittiest wagon in existence. Starting out, when you're doing animation, this will be considered a complex animation because there's more than one thing happening at the same time. So whenever you get complex animations like this, it's important to just do each thing one at a time. Do not try to animate both things at the same time, because what'll happen is, even if you get it right, you'll be confused and you'll get jumbled and not know which one. You know, when things are happening, when there's animation happening with like a bunch of things at the same time, it looks like they're all sort of like one continuous thing, which is the magic trick of animation. But really, this was a laundry list that somebody went down and said, you know, first I'm going to animate this, then I'm going to animate this, then I'm going to animate this. So, long story short, I'm going to do the wheel first. So, I want to use motion tweens for the wheel, so it's got to be a symbol. So, you can do this a long way. I never do it this way. You can go modify. So we're going to convert the symbol. Now, you want this to be a graphic symbol. Do not use movie clips. I'm going to say that again. For 2D animation, like unless you're making a video game or a visual novel or something that's interactive, if you're making something that's not interactive, like an animated movie, do not use movie clips. Use graphics. Long story short, graphics are better for animation. Movie clips have a lot of baggage attached to them that's specific for making the scenes interactive. And also, it just isn't easy to manipulate. The only time you would ever want to use a movie clip, please ignore the dog in the background. The only time you would ever want to use a movie clip is if you want to do like a glowing effect on something. All right, so now the wheel is a symbol. We know it's a symbol because it has this blue bounding box around it. I'm going to right click it, switch to transform. So you see, we get this perfect circular motion here. So I'm going to lock my base. So the way motion tweens work is you just start at your first keyframe, go to where you want to stop, right click, insert keyframe. Now, when you hit insert keyframe, it's going to fill all this with your first keyframe. So, you know, you want to get from here to here. And let's make this a more significant move. Let's just move this over there. So it's going to start here, going to go here. You want to click somewhere in this stretched out portion. Right click, create classic keyframe. There you go. Congratulations, you have made animation. Now, the thing that makes symbols powerful is that, let's say I go in here and I'm like, well, something about the way that wheel is moving is off. I want to go fix that. So you select the layer. You want to do this on the first keyframe, preferably not the last one. And when you go inside the symbol, you'll see that the symbol has its own timeline, independent of the regular timeline. And this is kind of confusing to grasp. And really, the only way you're going to understand this is if you play around with it and make stuff with it. So you can tell we're inside the symbol because here's our scene with our main timeline. This is our symbol, which is named Tween 1 because I didn't name it. But yeah, it has its own independent timeline. So what happens is, let's say the spokes on the wheels fall off or something, and it takes 20 frames. right? So let's say on frame 20, like the spokes pop off or something. Boom, they exploded. Happening on frame 20. Let's get out of the symbol, go back to our main scene. You can see that the symbol's internal timeline lines up with your main timeline. So the explosion still happens on scene 20. Let's say you want to start on scene 20, right? You want your first keyframe to be this frame. You're gonna go to the first frame, then you're gonna select your symbol on the stage. Make sure you have to select it on the stage and not in the timeline for this looping option to come up in your properties. So what you want to do is put this on play once and then change the first frame to frame 20. And now, our symbol starts on frame 20. So, out of context, this doesn't seem like a big deal. But what I've just showed you here is really powerful. It gives you access to like a level of layering that's not available in just like Photoshop or something. And this is really what makes Flash. This is what makes Flash powerful. This is why you want to use Flash, even outside of like symbol-based animation, like puppets and stuff. I always do this with puppets, but like outside of that stuff, I cannot tell you how significant it is to use symbols in your 2D animation.